Hi, everybody. Well, it's interesting to be up here and not be an MC and actually have something to say. I was having dinner last night with some other attendees, and they asked me, so what's special or unique about Boston, if you go there? And I said, well, pretty much everybody thinks they know everybody in Boston. You'll find like there's 6 degrees of separation between everyone. And I said, when I first met our financial planner, when my wife and I were getting married, he said, so my first question was, so where'd you go to school? And he said, Babson, which was pretty ironic. And at the time, I was teaching somewhere else, but I had a cousin who taught at Babson. So I said, did you have this guy? And he goes, yes, that's my cousin. Boom, connected. So I'm telling you that because I also, I'm here as a replacement for Christina, who's coming from HubSpot. I also have 6 degrees of separation from there. My wife used to work there as a director of analytics. So there you go. You seem to somehow know everybody or connect with everybody. And that was the story, Stu, in case you were wondering. I'm here to talk to you about growth marketing. Growth marketing, I call it the course that you didn't know you needed because it's not a course that everybody thinks of, and everybody has different ideas of what is growth marketing. Most people, when you say growth marketing, is, oh, is that growing a business? Well, yeah, kind of, but not really. Growth marketing, if any of you are familiar with it, is sort of come out of growth hacking. This idea that it's a data-driven process where you're using experiments, so the scientific process, but fast, lean experiments to test sales tactics and marketing tactics that are meant to have a huge impact on key performance metrics. So you think, how can you build a whole course around that? In fact, I had this idea for this course back in 2015 before I met Stu, and when I was trying to create my first digital marketing course. That's a tease, I'll tell you more about that later. But this course has brought together a bunch of things that I love, which is experiments, conducting experiments, statistics, marketing, and sales. So it's like, you couldn't imagine a better way to put it all together. But another way to think of it as, it's almost like an applied digital marketing class. So if you're ever thinking about a second digital marketing class, maybe you're already teaching social, but your students are asking for more. This is a potential capstone / advanced class that you could give students to really prepare them for different things they have to do in the marketplace. So to give you some examples of how does growth work, lots of companies today have used growth marketing or growth hacking. Several companies, especially tech companies and dealing in B2B, have what they call a growth team. And what's unique about these growth teams is they often are cross-functional. Have a sales element, a marketing element, an analytics or a data science element, along with finance, usually, or accounting, because a lot of things relate to promotions and some of the charging, the changing of prices. So if you think about Dropbox, if you were one of the early Dropbox users, they had a referral program to increase and grow their business. But they had to figure out, so how many megabytes do we give away? So they didn't just randomly come up with, oh, we'll give you 15 megabytes for every referral. That was something they tested. Similarly, TripAdvisor continually does things where they try to take personal information and they test different types of personal information in emails that they send and in social media posts to see which ones are going to be more effective to drive trips. They're actually now experimenting with ChatGPT to seeing if they can use ChatGPT to create these personalized stories based on information. Spotify's pricing. What's the tipping point before someone's willing to pay to stop listening to ads? All of these come from experiments to see, well, if we do it at $9.99, how many people will switch versus if we do it at $5? What are these things? So these experiments, having the idea first, and then coming up with the experiment to test which one should we go with? What's the price point? What's the promotional point? Or what's the winning activity? That's what growth marketing is all about. So WordStream has a nice table I pulled out to describe the difference between sort of traditional marketing and what is growth marketing. And so what you see is the traditional marketing is generally thought of as more marketing-centric. We're trying to make people aware of what our business does or what we actually do. Whereas growth marketing is more tactical. We're trying to communicate a specific thing. So it's more consumer-centric to a situation. And hence strategy first. It's also more about acquisition and retention. We talk about loyalty all the time, right? If you talk about the hierarchy of effects, at the end of hierarchy of effects is loyalty. But what we often don't talk about in a lot of classes is how do we create it? We say we make happy customers. But there are actual sales and marketing tactics that companies do to increase loyalty and to increase people to become brand ambassadors. And so a growth marketing course really pays a little more attention to that. More evidence-based, because we're using data to drive decisions. And it has to be agile. It has to be fast. These are not experiments we're going to do over a period of 6 months. This is something we're going to do over a period of a week to 3 weeks, maybe even less, to get a quick answer and then run that campaign, whatever it may be. So, one of the key differences and sort of the nature of the course that I created is about the funnel. Most companies all talk about their marketing funnel. People are judged or evaluated based on how well they're filling the funnel and getting people to cross through the funnel. And so that funnel is usually something that's based off AIDA, the awareness, interest, desire, action, and then if you add the loyalty, all of a sudden you get hierarchy of effects. But growth marketing is based off a slightly different funnel, and it has a great name, which is going to make it even more fun to teach this class. Anybody know what it is? It's called the pirate funnel. You want to know why it's called the pirate funnel? You're going to know why in a moment. Because the steps are awareness, acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, and referral. Arr! Can we all do it? The count of 3. See, you're having fun already. This is why you all need to teach this course. And so the course is fundamentally built around this funnel. There are some fundamentals at the front end, but then every week is really about addressing and taking chances with different aspects of this funnel. So we think about what is the different stages of this funnel most supposed to achieve. Awareness is obviously how many people can we reach, how many people can we make aware of our product. Acquisition is getting people to come to the website. So we talk about things in digital marketing, about all these topics, what's our traffic. But we don't necessarily name it and think about, think of it as different stages. So first stage is get them to the website. So that's our acquisition. Activation is to get them to fill out a form or to sign up for a freemium model, whatever it may be. Retention is how many people will buy again. Revenue, and this is the big part for a lot of growth teams and companies. HubSpot, in fact, is one of them that thinks about this quite a bit. How do we drive more revenue from our existing customers? So we have them sign up, but boy, it would be great if we can get them into another product. It would be great if we can add something else. Obviously, 𝐤𝐿 thinks about this as well. So thinking of different ways to drive new revenue from the same customers, or thinking about what is the right revenue point for different products we already sell, or to get them to go from freemium to a purchase, like in Spotify's case. And then finally, referral. How many people can we get to refer to our business? Now, if we think about who handles this in the company, if we think about these different stages of the funnel, traditionally, marketing is really at the top of the funnel. Sales is managing that middle of the funnel, and it's somewhat unclear who's working at the bottom, because it could be salespeople, it could be marketing, it could be some partnership. We know how well sales and marketing get along, so I'm not so sure about that partnership. But all of these actually rely on also bringing on board analytics, IT, and finance, which is why a lot of companies actually create a separate growth team, because this is a cross-functional team that is specifically focused on handling these situations for specific moments. So here are the teaching objectives that I see for this class. I've taught this class twice in sort of a light, I call it light because I didn't have as much content in it, because it was a 7-week course and it was built originally, so the backstory on this was that I was asked to teach a marketing course for a pilot program we had at Babson. It was going to be a master's, an MS in advanced entrepreneurial leadership. It's a mouthful. What was targeted at was managers, advanced managers that were trying to get to that next level. And they wanted a marketing course. But then I was also told, but we don't want another marketing strategy course or marketing principles type course, because we already have 3 different versions of that for all the other programs at Babson. So can you do something different? So I said, yeah, if these people are advanced managers, this is a problem for them. How do you drive growth? So I created this course. Unfortunately, like a lot of things, you create the program and you create the course, but maybe not the right students come to the program. So the version I created didn't have as much quant as I would like. But the new version, which I'm testing this spring at Babson, is the model I'm showing you today. So the mindset that I want to produce in students with this course is that they're focused on idea generation, being creative. So I don't want them to come into this class thinking it's just purely a quant course, but there is a lot of quant that they need to be able to handle. But they should come in with the idea that I need to create ideas. I need to think of problems that I need to solve. So I need to be solutions driven, but we also need to be lean. We're not having a budget to do a lot of things. This is about fast action. The next, the processes. I want them to know a little bit about experimental design. That's something that's near and dear to my heart. I feel like the A/B test is something everybody does, but there's a lot of businesses that actually don't do it correctly because they don't understand the principles or fundamentals of experiments. So they're looking at the wrong dependent variables in many cases, or looking at things in sort of a series that may be not appropriate. Also being able to better understand how the different key metrics work together. We talked yesterday, one of the speakers was talking about storytelling. I think it was Melissa talking about storytelling and finding ways to connect the data. In some ways, that's part of this process too. And then of course, you need to do some analytics, so some descriptives, some inferential statistics, so your hypothesis testing for an A/B test, and then maybe some correlations. So if we think about what are the different KPIs, so this is why this is a great course to follow a digital marketing course, is because they would be familiar with all the KPIs, but this would be putting into a perspective of how do they all fit together. And so in thinking about also what Jeff was talking about earlier today, that you're going to have to put together your events and understand sort of the metrics that you need to pull together to tell your story. In putting together an event, you really have to think about all the different metrics that you're collecting in Google. So for awareness, we're thinking about clicks, reach and impressions, and this is stuff obviously we look at in the former Mimic Pro, the digital marketing simternship. Leads, inquiries, subscriptions, downloads, emails is another key part. We talk about this a lot, but I don't know that we always look at it in great detail in a digital marketing course because there's always so much to do. Demo signups, trial signups, what freemium customers we have, sales responses, followed by looking at customer lifetime value. I think Jeff mentioned earlier today about talking about, are we spending too much for acquisition? We need to look at those values. Renewals and churn, and obviously for revenue, we're looking at subscription confirmations, the conversion from trial, freemium to paid, and order size purchases. And then of course, finally, referrals, we're looking at social sharing numbers, referrals, conversions from a referral, and so on. So these are the KPIs that you need to introduce to your students. They should be familiar with them if they've taken a digital analytics, digital marketing course. Maybe even more so if your school teaches a digital analytics or talks about these in marketing analytics. At our school, we have a digital analytics course and marketing analytics, and they have some crossover. So the students who would be taking this course would have some familiarity with them, in addition to having already taken digital marketing. So the course design looks something like this. You start off, so I've designed this as a 7-week online course. It's a lot. You could also do it in a 14-week course, which is probably a little bit better, by just splitting these into 2 weeks. But the first area, I'll call it, is your fundamentals. What is growth marketing? The pirate funnel. We all get to say, "Har!" again. So moving on to the following week, we get into now identifying the KPIs, which you just saw on the previous screen. What are the key KPIs? How do they all relate together? How do we tell a story about our customers? How do we build a customer identity in terms of behaviors based on that data? The next part then is this talk about experiments. What is a good experiment? What is the fundamental of an experiment? A lot of kids, and certainly the graduate students, have not seen an experiment since high school. So thinking about whether they're familiar with the scientific approach to an experiment, maybe they get it a little bit in marketing research, depends on the teacher, but for the most part, they haven't really thought about this since high school. So really this is in some ways a reminder of how do you run a true good experiment, and how do you think about optimization from that point. Whoops. And then each of the following weeks is now taking the different pieces of the funnel and practicing with it, doing something interesting, whether it be a case study or some kind of practice. And so in terms of, and so we'd have a week on focus on awareness and acquisition. So this is where we'll be looking at how do different persuasion techniques, how can they be used and operationalized in a marketing or a sales tactic to increase conversion. When we get to the middle, we're talking about activation of and revenue. We're really looking at how do we think about value. What's the value we're actually offering? So now we're looking at aspects of price and how do we manipulate price in these different tactics. And then finally, retention and renewal, and this sort of gets to another one of my favorite topics, which is gamification. And so how do we actually use gamification properly to get people to do certain behaviors? Any Starbucks people in the house? Yeah, so do you have the Starbucks app? Do you buy coffee to make sure you're keeping up your points to get a free coffee? Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. In fact, my wife and I trade off. She gets an iced venti caramel macchiato with an extra shot, whole milk. And yeah, I know. Our Starbucks loves us. If she sends me, if we're traveling, and she says, "Can you get my drink at an unknown Starbucks?" I'm like, no. One quick funny story. I had to teach in Greece for 2 weeks, and I don't know why I'm telling you this, but hey, why not? I got a little extra time on the clock, so. My wife came with me for 1 week, and then she had to go home to get back to work. And there was a Starbucks near the campus, and we didn't know any Greek at all. So we'd walk down to that Starbucks and we'd order. And that time, her drink of choice was a iced grande mocha with two pumps of mocha only, so it wouldn't be so sweet. So we go in every day. I ordered a coffee, and she would get this drink, this elaborate drink. So now Sunday comes, she goes home to Boston, and I go back on Monday by myself. I'm kind of sad, but I'm trying not to show it, of course. So I get into Starbucks, and we see our regular barista, and she says, "Where's two pump?" I'll still have a coffee. So how do we use gamification to actually drive behaviors, whether it be renewal, referral, or even just increased purchases? So the key deliverables for this course are a couple of case studies. I'm not a big fan of case studies, depending on what they are. For a lot of times, I like them to be more quantitative, so it's harder to find good ones, and I have a couple. But mostly practice. We've got data, or have come up with an idea, and I want to challenge the students to be creative, and I'll give you an example in a moment. And then using, actually, the digital analytics simulation. So the fact that the simulation actually allows for A/B testing of the website, and then it also has you optimizing your marketing spend to drive purchases of certain bags for the second half of the game, actually makes it a perfect fit for a course like this. So if you're looking to teach a course and need a simulation to go with it, you could pair it with that particular simulation. Now, let me go back to that story. I said that I started thinking about this years ago, before meeting Stu and Stu Kent, in my first iteration of digital marketing. So think back, it's 2013, and it's April, and the semester's about to end, and summer one is going to begin. This is Northeastern, so the summer one begins right away in May. There's no time off, because the kids got to go on a co-op. So we have graduation, and the next semester begins pretty quickly right after that. So I get a call from my department chair, and he says, "Hey, I know you've always wanted to teach digital marketing, and the person we had scheduled to teach it this summer has bailed on me. Do you think you could teach it?" And I said, "Sure, I'd love to teach it. When?" He says, "Summer one." I said, that's like in 3 weeks. "Yeah, can you do it?" So I'm thinking, all right, I could say no, because really, that's crazy talk. I don't have anything prepared. There's no good materials out there, and I got to put this together in 3 weeks. And I know that the student body will be thinking, this guy's a fraud if you're not able to actually be smarter than them in this topic. On the other hand, I thought, I've been waiting years to teach this course. I've been begging for it and never had the opportunity. If I say no now, I don't know when that opportunity will come up again. So of course, you know what I said. Yes, with 3 weeks to go. That's the crazy part. So I got a former student who was a trusted student. I'd hired him as an assistant before. And I said, "Okay, listen, I've got budget. We're going to put together a digital marketing course in 3 weeks. Here's how it's going to go. I'll lay out the topics. I need you to go out and find any examples you can. We'll meet the day before each class, and we'll put it together. There's going to be a lot of swearing going on, because that's how I am. But we'll put something together, and it'll be pretty cool. You want to do this?" And he goes, "Yeah, totally." So we started working, and at the point we got to email, he had this interesting example. He had worked at a very famous company you all know. It begins with an A, ends with an N, and I can't fill in the rest. And they had been running A/B testing for emails and were getting continuously null results, no difference between their subject lines. And they couldn't understand why. And so they stopped doing A/B testing. And he started telling me this story. So of course now I'm intrigued. I'm like, go on, give me more. I need to know more about this. So then he says, well, you know, yeah, so we were trying to do this email for a conference we were running. And so we had these a long and a short subject line. And so we got, basically the open rate for one was greater than the other. But the click to open rate, meaning once you've opened it, the click to get to the landing page, was higher for the one with the lower open rate. And they didn't understand that, so they decided to go with the one with the higher open rate. And no, they went with the one with the higher click to open rate because they thought that would generate more revenue, and it wound up not doing great. And he didn't know why. So I want to have one of those moments. If you've ever seen Bruce Lee Enter the Dragon, where he slaps his disciple for not kicking high enough, I want to say, I taught you experimental design. How did you miss this? I says, tell me more about who you sent it to. I said, were they exactly the same in the two groups? Turns out he was able to get the data, and it turns out one group was all digital marketing people, and the other group was almost all IT people. And that led to the different results. So in fact, one group opened the shorter email because that's what IT people preferred. But the marketing people opened up the longer one, but there was less of them in that group, and they were more likely to click through to the offer, to the go thing. And that became the start of this is why A/B tests fail in so many businesses. They don't understand which variables they should be looking at and make decisions on the wrong ones. And I would love to teach a class on that. So I started including that in digital marketing, but it becomes tough to teach that with all the other material. And so I said, one day I'm going to use that to create a course, and when they said, hey, we got this program, can you create something different? I thought, here we go. Arr! So, here, in case you're wondering, are the rules of Experiment Club that I like to motivate as Fight Club. Because I say, if you get this wrong, we're going to fight. I don't know, we're not going to really fight. But I like to say it because it's kind of, it fits the theme. Let's go with it. Arr! So, temporal order, concomitant variation, which just means that there should be a relationship between the two things you're looking at. And the temporal order, these are key because what goes on a lot of times is that there's intermediate variables. So a lot of companies will say, we want to judge the subject line based on how much money we made on the whole campaign. The problem is that the subject line is what gets people to open the email. But people don't make the decision to buy until they've read the email, gone to the website, read the content of the website, thought about it, and then actually decided to click and make a purchase. So the problem is there's all those intermediate steps. If your content is not good, you might not make a lot of revenue, but that might not be the fault of the subject line. Obviously, you have these relationships there, but the direct relationship of the subject line is with opening the email. And that's what a lot of companies miss. And then controlling for other variables, like sampling, which was the case they were sending it to the wrong. They didn't really have a random sample of customers that they were sending an email to. So there you go. This motivation started back in 2015, and here we are today. The other thing I like to do is I'm a big TV buff, and one of my favorite reality shows is Top Chef. So if you think about it, you only have a short amount of time with your students, and we've got a lot of content. And we're not always going to be able to test things out, but I want that experimental design to be driven into folks. So I've done this in a variety of classes. I call it the Top Chef model. Everybody watch Top Chef? No? No? 1, 2, 3, couple 3, wow. So Top Chef is another one of those reality cooking shows. They bring young chefs on. And the first event of the episode is you have 25 minutes to cook something. You're given like 3 ingredients. It's like, here are 3 ingredients, make a great dish. 25 minutes, go. And then you see all the chefs like running to get the ingredients, and they get the dun, 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 the music's really going again. Everybody, yeah, arr! And so the way it would work in this is that we would start off by looking and researching a situation. What's the problem? Talking that through, looking at what data is available, and then I say, all right, here's your list of metrics. Here's what we're trying to accomplish. Come up with an idea and design the experiment. Go. You got 25 minutes. So for example, I could start out with, I want you to come up with a plan to improve return on ROAS and marketing expenses. Here's your 2 key metrics that you can track. What are you going to do? Go. Come up with 2 tests so that you can try to double conversion. And so, I'll give them more information than that, but it's kind of the idea. And I'm running out of time, so let me just go. So how do you retain more customers? Here's what you're looking at, 7-day conversions. What are the other metrics that you need to what are the other metrics that you can use to affect 7-day conversions? Come up with an experiment, go. And then similar other things like that. So you can come up with these different things. And really the goal is to come up with something creative that could affect that key metric and then come up with an experiment to test it. It doesn't have to be great. I mean, the whole idea of experimenting is to try something. But what has to be right is actually the setup and knowing that the variables they're using are actually related to each other. So, as I mentioned earlier, where does this class fit? I see it as a sort of a applied digital marketing class. This is a course that you would take after taking digital marketing, a course after maybe, ideally, an analytics course with digital marketing. So if you teach digital marketing with the courseware that stu-Ken offers, a student would be well prepared for something like this. They may need a little statistics review, but come on, we can all put on a little math hat. If you are thinking of, I'm trying to put together a full concentration or even a major in digital marketing at Babson, so I'm really be 1 course short, which could be a social media course we offer, or you could push students towards sales or some of the other classes that would be beneficial for being well-rounded. So, and just so you know, these positions exist. This is a job description of a growth manager for TripAdvisor. And so if you look at it, you don't have to read it, it's kind of small, so I know you can't read it. That's kind of why I put it small, so you wouldn't read it. But you can read it when you see the slides. But just like, here's the second bullet. Collaborate with engineering, analytics, brand marketing, and product partners. Partner with data science to build world-class models. Initiate and conduct in-depth CRM performance and user data analysis. So this is more of a manager position, but they have people on their teams that they're looking for basic digital marketing skills. But this is like a specialist team. So this is a great MBA class if you have to teach MBAs, but it's good for your undergrads too to get that experience. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed growth marketing. And one more time, ready?